Yo, what's up, guys? This is Why Not Be Reckless, aka Why Not Be Casting. I'm one of the HCS commentators, and we have another HCS Weekly Report where today we're going to be talking about Fnatic, and not just them, but also talking about their journey into HCS all the way from the beginning of Season 1 to where they are today. And then we're even going to take a deep dive into the players that they dropped and where they are as well. So it's going to be a deep dive into Fnatic, and we're going to find out if they're on the right track or if they might have taken a few steps too far back. Right now, we know that Fnatic are made up of Jazero and Septify. And it's been a lot of talks about their current roster right now and who they're running with, and this questioning decisions that were made throughout their journey. But as of right now, we know that Septify is an absolute stud. He's definitely the main slayer and a player most likely Fnatic want to build around, and I think they really can. He's always been a young, talented player, and it's really cool to see them finally getting the recognition he deserves. Off of Jazero, he's had an up and down season with Fnatic. We had a situation where they benched him for like 2 weeks, and it was kind of really weird because they brought him back in going into Anaheim, even though they were running with different players, trying to find a different formula. Eventually, then Coach Strobe had said that they thought they needed to change their players out, but instead he felt like they needed to change their play style. So we started to notice Fnatic really speed up their gameplay going into Anaheim, and we're going to see if that worked out for them right off the rip. And now, mind you, they did play in Raleigh under the team name Business, or Strictly Business to my knowledge, but their first tournament technically signed by Fnatic was over at Anaheim, where they were able to get a top 12 placing. So a team getting top 12 in their first official tournament together really isn't bad. I mean, that's a little bit of money. It was obviously a lot of tough competition leading into it, but we also had very high expectations for Fnatic. Like, I was putting them in the same breath as like a KCP. Underdogs going into the early season, had the capability to beat out almost anyone. A lot of these players have even played with the KCP boys. So I had them almost in the same breath as the Kansas City Pioneers, even though I had KCP just a slight edge on them if they ever matched up, but they still kind of reminded me of each other as far as play style and also as far as growing up in that same era and even playing with each other. After that, a second and first place during the Open Series, not bad. We started to see them really step into the right direction. Did Fnatic. Obviously, you know what? Let me go over the full roster while we're at it. By the way, Septify, Jazero, Envor, and Super CC. We talked about Septify and Jazero, but you have Envor, the main slayer of this crew, had a really great ability of just staying alive and putting high amount of damage. And if we're talking about staying alive, we have to talk about Super CC. They call him Super CC evades for a reason. The man seems to evade as much damage as possible and uses his creative movement to get out of these crazy sticky situations and buy time for the rest of his team to come out. So you had Envoy, who was always able to stay alive and always have that high damage output, so always have a nasty little KD. And then you had Super CC, who was that distraction player. He would always get behind enemy lines, stay alive, and be a nuisance, almost like a Walshy-esque player, and buy enough time for his teammates to come in, collapse, and for them to get those full squad wipes. I really loved these two together, and I love this team as a whole, and we're going to see if it pays off. Going into Kansas City, able to replicate the same success that they had at Anaheim, staying in the top 12. I think this team really wanted to see top 8 going into Kansas City, but it was really tough. Again, competition kept getting better in HCS, and one thing we kind of noticed is that Fnatic didn't. And and it's not to say they weren't grinding. They were grinding. They were putting in the work. They were doing everything they can, but the competition kept getting better, and we didn't notice that same improvement coming out of Team Fnatic. And we're going to talk about that going in, as again, top 12 during the Pro Series, same thing. Top 16, we're noticing again online they're not getting that top 8, that top 6 that they want. And then eventually going into the North American Super, even a little bit before then, they actually drop Envor, and they pick up Rami, who I really like. Rami's a great player and a good glue player, and a player that can round off many different rosters. But it was really weird seeing them drop Envor off, and obviously there's stuff that goes on behind the scenes that we'll never know about, and I would love to put that to light, but even if I did know, it probably wouldn't be my place to do so. Either way, Envor separates from this team. They bring Rami in, and it wasn't the same. Going into the North American Super, you end up getting top 20, and that was really tough. Even after that, you go into the Open Series where, Complexity, Space Age, United Protoss. So we're not talking about, optics. We're not talking about the likes of, Sentinels or Cloud9. This is, if you're getting top 12 when the best of the best are competing, then when the top 8 teams aren't competing, you would think Fnatic would be able to step in and at least get top 3. But again, like I said, everyone getting better, and you're just not seeing the same out of Fnatic, and it was tough to watch because I really love the Fnatic boys, and I wanted to see them succeed. I wanted to see them succeed together, but who knows? No matter what, whether it's apart, I'm sure they'll find some kind of success going forward into the HCS. And that leads us to wondering, what's the current roster for Fnatic? They actually told Active that the roster is complete, but they didn't actually tell us who the roster was. So you already know your boy Tony, Uncle Tony, got your back. I did a little bit of digging, and I'm gonna try to. I know who the roster. I got you. Don't worry. I got you. Still rocking with Septifying Zero. Joining them is the former Exit duo of Suppressed and Arctic. Suppressed has been playing with the Space Station Gaming. You have Suppressed, a high damage output player, strong, fundamentally sound as well, always keeping that reticle steady and straight, almost similar to a formal type of fundamental with his shot. And then you have Arctic, a swing player, always seems to go positive, and it's never flashy. Like I talk about this. I talked about this in a podcast yesterday. HCS Source. Arctic just does what he needs to do. It's good fundamentals. Put shots, win your gunfights, stay alive, and you won't see him a ton of time on the kill feed. But then you just take a peek, and he drops 26 and 18, and you're like, well, how? Like I barely saw him on screen. So he's just sneakily a very good player, and I will say, do I know that if this is the exact formula that they need to get back on track? I'm not sure. But I can say that I like the squad. Again, I talked about Septify and Zero. I think they're very capable slayers. I think they're capable of putting out damage and really upsetting a lot of these individual gunfights and these pivotal gunfights. And I've always been big on Suppressed. I've been big on Suppressed since Halo 5 SWAT tournaments. Like I've known Suppressed for quite a bit, and Donnie is the real deal. He really is, and no matter where he finds himself, he will find success, even on bigger rosters if they chose to give him a chance. But I like this roster a lot, and I think Fnatic can make some plays going into Orlando, and quite frankly, they need to. In our eyes, Fnatic have underperformed, and it's been tough to watch, and they're far removed from early when they were going top 12 at Anaheim, top 12 at Kansas City. They've been far removed from that. Back in Anaheim, they took Cloud9 to a game 5. They almost upset Cloud9 and sent them to the elimination bracket for the first time in season 1 of HCS. So it just tells you where they were compared to where they're at. So we need to see a huge resurgence out of Septifying the boys on Fnatic. I think we do. When we're talking about Fnatic, I think it wouldn't do them justice if we didn't talk about where the players they dropped were. So starting with Envor, kind of like how we mentioned before, Envor was that slayer, was that the heart of that team. He was the one that brought the passion, did Envor. So when they dropped him, you not only saw a dip in the morale, but you also saw a dip in the placings once they did that. Arctic now filling in that role onto Fnatic. Maybe he can bring the spark that they're looking for. And now with questions, so who's on Forbidden Fruit right now? Because Forbidden Fruit were able to outplace Fnatic during the North American Super. So I think we need to talk about them as well. Envoy and Tony Two-Turn, they seem to be the little bit of a nice little duo coming in, and they've been playing together for quite some time now, and they're really quickly becoming those guys, like that duo. You have so much passion, so much trash talk capability on that team. I love this team together. Let me tell you, if they go through the open bracket, it's gonna be loud. If you see an Envoy or a Tony Two-Turn jersey anywhere in the open bracket, go and watch, because Tony's disrespectful. He gets loud. He yells at enemy team. It doesn't matter. He is disrespectful, and he is entertaining to watch. We know Hysteria. We know he can be tough as well. And again, like we said, Envoy, that high damage dealer. But then joining them is Rami. So you have two players that were dropped off of that Fnatic roster, now going to Forbidden Fruit. You have Hysteria, formerly of Complexity, and Tony Two-Turn, who was dropped off of that G1 roster, and since then G1 have found massive success as well. So you have four players that are so hungry and looking to bounce back in their careers together, and I can't help but be excited about that. Like I know my man Active, he always talks about the mental side of things. And he always talks about, like, you know, when you're playing for something a little bit more than that money, a little bit more than that win, that bragging rights, when you're fighting for that revenge, you know, you're going on that revenge tour, if you will. Sometimes that can breed success, and that's exactly what they did. You know, I caught them scrimming against Oxygen Esports. By the way, Oxygen have been absolutely lights out. They upset FaZe in that North American Super pool play. They were able to get a top 12 finish, which was really good, you know, beating out the likes of Forbidden Fruit, beating out the likes of Complexity, Native, Fnatic. So when I saw that Oxygen were scrimming up against Forbidden Fruit, the very team that they actually finished one round above, I had to check it out, and it was great. We got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wins in favor of Forbidden Fruit. Undefeated over Oxygen Esports, which, by the way, is not easy. Oxygen Esports have been absolutely lights out. Oxygen Esports have shown us that they are the real deal. And this, and even comparing to that roster that were, you know, putting out Swish and Name and even Haynes, I honestly believe this is the best Oxygen Esports roster that we've seen them put in a tournament, and they got 0-7 goosed against Forbidden Fruit. Again, the very team that finished one round above them. I'm telling you, there's something real about when you're playing for something to prove that you're still the real deal, that team that dropped you made a mistake, and that you can still find success even with them or even without them. So my thing is, watch out for Forbidden Fruit going into Orlando, because if they can do this to Oxygen Esports, what the hell else can they do to the open bracket? Guys, that's your HCS Weekly Report. Really fun making these videos every single morning, 10 o'clock in the morning. And this was definitely uploaded to YouTube literally today. And yeah, Fnatic, this video is about Fnatic and also about Forbidden Fruit. And I can't wait to do tomorrow's episode. I think we're actually going to talk about Optic Gaming, so you're not going to want to miss that one. We do this live, twitch.tv/YNOT_B_casting. If you can't make it to the live shows, you might be watching on the YouTube like you are right now. So leave your comments down below on where you think Fnatic and Forbidden Fruit are going to end up in Orlando, and make sure you check out tomorrow's episode, because we're going to be talking about Optic Gaming.